Welcome to the Fourth Branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening. Ignorance is the biggest threat to any democracy. John F. Kennedy said, "The ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all." Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the Fourth Branch program. First, a warning. This program is not suitable for all audiences. I repeat, the content of this program is not for everyone. To find out if it's suitable to you, please answer the following two questions. Question number one, would you entrust your teenage daughter to a known rapist? Question number two, would you have a known pedophile cared for your toddler? Once again, question one, would you entrust your teenage daughter to a known rapist? And question two, would you have a known pedophile cared for your toddler? Your time is up, obviously. If you had difficulty answering either question, this program is not for you. If you answer yes to either or to both questions, this program is definitely not for you. But if both of your answers are absolutely not, this program is catered exclusively to you. You should stick around. It is enlightening, interesting, informational, educational, and informative. And today, we will discuss a very interesting topic, the midterm election 2018. You don't want to miss that. Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. to begin the conversation, first, we would like to point to you that the midterm election is on November 6, 2018. That's next week, next Tuesday. That is the midterm election. First, we would like to remind you to set that date aside in order to go and vote. It is extremely important. It is critical. I personally have been pretty lazy. I very rarely vote on during midterm election. But this time, it is different. It is necessary. It is important. You should vote as if your life depends on it, because it does. We are not in the predicament, the country is not in the predicament it is today by accident. That was not a cataclysmic event that caused the country to be where it is at today. Something happened. And shortly we will explain as to why it is important, no matter what you will be doing next week, to put some time aside to go and cast your vote. That's number one. But that's not all, and that's not just it. You should also pay very close attention when you go to vote, that the vote that you cast is goes for the individual you cast that vote for. And I mention that because it is important. For instance, in Texas, it is already found that individuals who have done early voting, who have casted their vote, have found out that they pick someone to vote for, and at the end, when they are presented with the screen to review their choices, the individual for which they wish to vote, that information has been changed to somebody else. But more specifically, in Texas, it has been changed from Beto O'Rourke to Ted Cruz. This is not a joke. This is not an assumption. This is not a speculation. It had been proven, and that information was forwarded to the ACLU and was also provided to the media, that a vote was cast for Beto O'Rourke, who is the challenger to Ted Cruz for the Senate seat in Texas. And if that individual did not pay attention and just press enter, her vote would have gone to Ted Cruz, when in fact she intended the vote to go to Ted Cruz challenger Beto O'Rourke. So please, one, you have to make certain that you go to the poll and vote next Tuesday, November 6th. But you also need to be careful before you hit the key for the final, before you hit the key, and while you're reviewing your choices, make certain that the choices that you made at the beginning, when you are presented with that information at the end, that's what you intended. Because as I mentioned, votes are being changed, whether it was an error, whether it was deliberate. At this point, we don't have that information. We don't know. But we know for sure that it is happening. In Georgia, on the other hand, there is also something going on. The Secretary of State, who is supposed to ensure voting integrity, is running to become the next governor. But he refused to recuse himself while running for the office of the governorship. And at the same time, there were already cases that he had purged for a period of 3 years, more than 500,000 individuals from the voting list. And what makes it even worse is this year, he already purged more than 53,000 people from the voting list, and 30,000 of them belong to the minority group. And it so happened the individual who is challenging Brian Kemp for the governorship happened to be a black woman. So there are situations going on, but contrary to what Republicans have been saying over and over and over, in all of the cases, they are responsible for the problem. So it's not a joke, it's not a speculation, it's not an assumption. It is the individual that's crying wolf are the one causing the problem. So be extra careful, be vigilant, and most importantly, if you find that there is a problem, scream, get somebody's attention, because at all the polling booths, at all the polling sites, there are going to be members of both parties available to provide assistance. So don't just throw your hands in the air. Ask, because it is important. And today, we are going to talk about a very sensitive issue, and the reason it is that important is because we at the Fourth Branch, we are not, the purpose of the program is to impart information so that individuals can make decisions, political or otherwise. However, this time around, we have made an exception. We have gotten involved in putting weight on one side over the other. And as you see on the screen, we are going to make a case to deny Republican victory in the midterm election. And it is important. It's not just lightly that we decide to do that. It is because it is important for the outcome to be different from what it is today. And second, we started yesterday, and in the next few days until November 6th, we are going to present examples after example after example to show why it is critical that even if you are a Republican, to deny the Republican representative a victory, your life depends on it. The future generation, the future of the country is directly related to the outcome of the midterm election. So you don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss that. Stay with me for just a moment. We'll be right back to bring you those details of a very important, very critical election that outcome you supposed to make the outcome happen, no matter what. Hello everyone, I am MD, and this is the Fourth Branch Project, the first and only program which is dedicated exclusively to those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. The Fourth Branch Project seeks to emphasize country over party. Its primary objective is to restore interest in civic duty and involvement in social, political issues, discussion, debate, which might impact lives in this generation and quite possibly in future ones. Put differently, the Fourth Branch Project is a journey towards restoring America's greatness, where patriotism is the foundation of every decision, every policy, every word, every action. Said differently, it is a journey to save democracy in America. Stay with us. We will be right back. We begin by making reference to an article that we wrote in March of 2014. And here is a quick excerpt of that article. I will read some paragraph of that article, and there is a point to it, and you'll see it shortly. We will not discuss the actual article, but we will refer to it during our discussion about the midterm election. But first, let's take a look. Again, this article was written in March of 2014. And here is quickly an excerpt of that. As March 31st deadline to sign up for Obamacare is near its end, it is only appropriate to take a look at what it means to have Obamacare. Notwithstanding the dance in Washington that the number of applicants who sign up for the plan is much higher than expected. 5 million were expected, but as of this writing, over 6 million have already signed up. But many questions still need to be answered. For one, the website needs improvement. But most importantly, the act itself, the Healthcare Act itself, needs changes. As with anything in life, it takes time to work out the kinks. However, one must not discard or must not reject rather that because there are flaws, one must not reject the act altogether. Before the passage of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, the expression pre-existing condition used to send chills down the spinal cord of anyone who applied for health care with a past or existing illness, acne, asthma, and yes, even domestic abuse, no kidding, were considered pre-existing condition by insurance company. Now, before the passage of Obamacare, any child who was over 18, not attending school, or 21 if you're attending college, would have to buy individual coverage on his or her own, or go without insurance. Now, with Obamacare, that child would be covered up to 26 years of age. Before the passage of Obamacare, insurance company used to approve, reject, discontinue coverage with the sole purpose of either maximizing profit, very often at the cost of human lives. Before the passage of Obamacare, health insurance applicants with pre-existing condition would either have to pay a very high premium with very limited benefits, but they also lived under the constant fear of coverage cancellation, medical procedure denied, or capped insurance coverage cap has been reached. It was very bad news for individuals with pre-existing condition, for individuals with illnesses, but absolutely good news for insurance companies. That article was written on March 2014. That's pretty much 4 years after the passage of Obamacare. Now, it's been a while because 2010 was when Obama, as President of the United States, passed the task of crafting legislation to provide coverage for individuals who were either out of work, who could not afford coverage because of their financial situation. And Congress at that time, both Congress and the Senate, were fully controlled by the Democrat. Just today, we have both Congress and the Senate fully controlled by Republicans. Now, the act obviously was passed. Not a single Republican voted for the act. But that's not the reason we're here. We're not here to talk about Obamacare. As I mentioned, we read these paragraphs in order to make room for our discussion about the 2018 election. And we will be doing that shortly, but we want to establish that as basis for today. As I mentioned earlier, in the next few days, we will address the 2018 election exclusively, but most importantly, every day we will talk about a particular topic that has impacted a group or the whole country, and to provide context about that topic and justify the reason we say a case to deny Republican victory in the midterm election. We're not saying that for the sake of saying that. We're saying that because there are plenty of examples. We're not going to be using every single example, but we're going to take some of the major ones to make the point, to make the case. Because you, be it a Democrat or Republican, need to be aware as to what you are getting when you have representative of your state in Washington. What exactly are you getting? Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to discuss why it is necessary on November 6th, the date for the midterm election, November 6th, next Tuesday, November 6th, that's the midterm election. Why it is necessary, even if you are a Republican, to make certain you deny your Republican representative a victory this November. I'll be right back. Join me here on the 4th branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. am MD, and this is the Fourth Branch Project, the first and only program which is dedicated exclusively to those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. The Fourth Branch Project seeks to emphasize country over party. Its primary objective is to restore interest in civic duty and involvement in social, political issues, discussion, debate, which might impact lives in this generation and quite possibly in future ones. Put differently, the Fourth Branch Project is a journey towards restoring America's greatness, where patriotism is the foundation of every decision, every policy, every word, every action. Said differently, it is a journey to save democracy in America. Stay with us. We will be right back. Ron Paul, who is the father of Rand Paul, the current senator from Kentucky, said that real patriotism is a willingness to challenge the government when it's wrong. So it's not about voting Democrat or Republican. It is challenging your government when it's wrong. The reason we're talking about problem today in the country, although we are in the midst of a great economy, it's because today, for the past, since 2010, Republicans have been in control of both houses. And yet, we're talking about problem in the country. The other day, I was confronted with a dilemma in an attempt to inject some common sense into the minds of some Republicans. During a conversation we were having, I was trying to reason. And one of the Republicans said, you know, you are a damn lib. That's the way that most Republicans tend to refer to anyone that they disagree with. Recall how Trump referred to Bob Mueller, probe as a bunch of Democrats and angry Democrats after him. Remember that? Bob Mueller is a Democrat. Rod Rosenstein is a Democrat. James Comey is a Democrat. James Clapper, John Brennan, Steve Schmidt. You get the gist. Anyone who disagree with most Republicans is a damn lib. They usually cannot face the fact that they either wrong or could be wrong. So if they cannot call the individual a damn lib, they call that individual a traitor. For instance, we know that a lot of Republicans who support Donald Trump has been calling Jeff Sessions a traitor. So Republicans in general, well, most Republicans have problems with facts, with truth. It's either you have to go along with lies, which there is plenty of that, which a lot of distortion of facts. But if you do not want to go along with it, you're either a damn lib or you're a traitor. If they see that there is no way that they can call you damn lib. So that individual who could not destroy my argument say, you know, it's a free country. Everyone has an opinion. Of course, everyone has an opinion, whether it's a free country or not. But that's not really the point. You can have an opinion, but that doesn't mean anything because the opinion has to be based on some rationale. Most Republicans, it is a given, would argue to death than to pause and consider the other side of the argument may actually be the correct one. But it's not what disagreement is. It is something more troubling than that. You can have a disagreement with someone trying to decide between blue and red, which one is better, which one is best. That's a disagreement. Or actually, not even that. You can have disagreement that you prefer blue, the other side prefer red. That's a disagreement. But decide that blue is better than red, this is not a disagreement. Because what makes blue better than red? By what standard? What is the gauge? So there is a big difference between disagreement and, well, something that's beyond, that weighs more than disagreement. For instance, to say that providing healthcare to 20 plus million individuals is a matter is considered a matter of disagreement between Democrat and Republican, but it is not a disagreement. It is an understatement to say that it is a disagreement, which brings me to the topic of today's, which is, well, the Obamacare. In politics, disagreement is good. There is nothing wrong with disagreement. Now, if you think about it clearly, it is good in order to craft better legislation. Because it is silly the minute that someone or a party comes with something and the other party goes along with it. That really, no one is perfect. There is no way in the world that either political party would have the what you would call the key to perfection. And there is no such thing as I have the answer to all the questions. This is actually impossible. So no matter which way you look at it, whether you're talking about Democrat or Republican, the two parties comprise a bunch of individuals, different culture, different background, different level of education. So you cannot expect that the minute that even within a particular political group itself, you're going to have disagreement. So let alone now you have two political parties, each one vying to get the upper hand. So there are going to be plenty of disagreement. That's fine as long as it is healthy disagreement. But both sides also have to at least have people who have the understanding that he or she or the group that he or she belongs to does not have the key to everything is right and the other side everything is wrong. In order to make anything happen in life, there got to be compromise. But what we have seen has happened in both sides. But for the past 8 years, exclusively, Republicans have pushed aside Democrats completely and did everything that you have seen that's being done without any Democrat participation. Now, the argument is not reversely true. Because if you remember, Republicans had the privilege, the opportunity rather, to debate their dislike for Obamacare. Now, we'll come to that in a minute, but at least that information or that opportunity was provided to them. Not so with Republicans. Democrats are completely discarded. And they pass a tax cut. They didn't need any Democrat input. Well, actually, they didn't take any input from Democrats. Brett Kavanaugh pushed into the Supreme Court. They reject any input from Democrats because it just doesn't matter. It didn't matter. Now, to come back to our notion of disagreement, we know that a disagreement, as pointed out in the example of between two different colors. I may prefer red, and if you prefer blue, so we have a disagreement on which color we should go with. That's a disagreement. But we cannot call it a disagreement if I say blue is better. That's not a disagreement. Because you have to understand the difference between I prefer blue, you prefer red, we have a disagreement. But the rationale behind me preferring blue cannot be part of the conversation as to call it the reason for the disagreement. Because to say the blue look better is a matter of preference, taste, because you may not see it the same way. Now, as I mentioned earlier, most Republicans would argue to death rather than to pause and consider that the other side of the argument may actually be correct. So, needless to point out that with the passage of the healthcare, Republicans overwhelmingly, actually all the Republicans were against the Obamacare. Now, as I just pointed out earlier, having disagreement is fine, but what Republican practice in general, vis-a-vis Democrats in particular, we cannot call it disagreement, as I tried to explain earlier. Now, consider this. When Obama proposed the passage of the Healthcare Act, the debates were brought to the floor. Republicans, all Republicans argued against it. Not a single individual in the Republican Party paused to consider its merit. Everything which could be construed as bad in that legislation was bad with Obamacare as far as Republicans were concerned. Because Democrats were in control of both houses and Obama was president in the Oval Office. So it was difficult for GOP to stop the passage of the act. Just like the $1.5 trillion tax cut could not have passed because Republicans are in control of both houses and a Republican, quote unquote Republican, sit in the Oval Office. So faced with the inevitable, Republicans organized a PR campaign against the passage of the act. Now, here's what makes it the behavior Machiavellian. One, Republicans didn't have an alternative. There was no alternative. Even as of date that we are talking about Republicans still trying to kill Obamacare, there is no alternative. Now, how can you be against something and not have an alternative? Now, I want you to understand very clearly what we're talking about. The fight that the Republicans had against Obamacare was not a fight against the legislation because it's bad. And I'm going to prove that to you shortly. Not because they say, well, it's bad. Of course, they said that. They campaigned against that. You may remember there was the death panel. Obamacare is going to kill grandma. There are a number of arguments that Republicans brought to the table in their PR campaign against Obamacare. But it was just that, PR campaign. It is a soft term for it because it was mostly a PR of deception. And I'm going to show you and I'm going to prove that it is the case. Republicans were more interested in protecting the insurance companies instead of providing healthcare to those who were not in a position to get it. Either they didn't have a job or the financial situation didn't warrant it. Why? How could I possibly know that Republicans were more interested in protecting the insurance company instead of individual? Well, here's the proof. One, common sense. Common sense is the first item that's going to provide you with the proof that you need to see that Republican had no reason whatsoever. They had no logical reason whatsoever to go against Obamacare. Keep in mind, they all the Republicans, every single Republican representative that you voted for, you sent to Washington to represent, to do things that's helpful to you, every single one voted against Obamacare. Hold that thought. Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. Program which is dedicated now. Common sense, right? Let's take a simple example. If you have a car, I'm going to assume that it's a car that's not perfect, may not even have everything that you would want in a car. But the car can take you from point A to point Z. It may not be a car you can flash on the street if you're a man, a gentleman, and you would want to flash your car in order to impress women. It may not be that car, but whatever the situation is, you have a car that you wake up in the morning, you're going to work, you start the car, and you don't have a problem. It takes you to work, it takes you back home, and you can go and do all your errands using the car. Not perfect, not a flashy car, not one of those luxurious cars, but it's a car that's useful to you. Common sense? Why would you get rid of that car without an alternative? You need a car to go to work, but you don't have one. Oh, you thinking about buying one, a better one. You thinking about buying a luxurious car, but you don't have it yet. So the idea of getting rid of something that you have, however flawed it is, without having an alternative is irrational. Doesn't make any sense to any individual. Even the most stupid individual can tell you no no sound-minded individual would ever do something like that. Because you need to have something to replace what you have, preferably something that's better than what you have. Because you cannot tell me that you would have a car, let's just say latest version of whatever brand, and then you get rid of it to get an older version. That would make no sense. So first, you have to have an alternative. That is common sense. No matter which language you speak, that is common sense. You may not like Obamacare, now referring to your representative in Washington. They may not like it for whatever reason. It's the old car that you have that's useful to you, that takes you from point A to point Z. In order for you to replace that car, you have to come up with not only another car, but with a better car. So we know that your Republican representative were doing this out of spite, out of malice, and they trying to deceive you, the Republican constituent. Because as I just pointed out to you, no one, and those Republicans in Washington, you elected them, you sent them to Washington to do things that improve your lives, and yet here they were doing exactly the opposite. Why would you continue to put faith on that individual? Common sense. Either they don't have common sense, or they don't care about you. They have a different agenda. No matter which one it is, this is a case for you to say, I no longer need your service. No matter what it is. Because if you elected someone to represent your views, if you elected someone to do things for you, for your state, that is better, to better your life, to improve your lives, and that individual has been doing things that actually doing just the opposite, it is time to get rid of that individual. If you hire someone to do your driveway and the individual either cannot do it, by the way, you pay the individual, whether it's half the money before, half the money after, whatever the case is, you disburse money. You have a stake in it. So you hire someone because you think or you thought that person was qualified. So you hire that individual to do your driveway. The individual proves that he is unreliable, cannot do it, will not do it. Whatever the case is, I guarantee you, you will not continue to give that individual money to do the driveway. Why in the world would you continue to vote the same individual in office that's actually doing things that harmful to you? Common sense. You can argue all you want about anything in the world, but it is common sense. By the way, there were 14 Republican governors who refused to provide constituents in their respective state the opportunity to sign up for Obamacare. They tell you Obamacare is bad. They tell you Obamacare is going to kill grandma. They tell you Obamacare is going to kill job. They came up with a bunch of what I call really deceptive campaign. That wasn't politics. Politics is when I can prove to you that I have a better alternative to the other candidate. That's politics. Obama came with Obamacare. Republican could have come with something and show that it is better than Obamacare. Not just come with something to replace. Just like I just mentioned, common sense would tell you if you get rid of a car to get another one, common sense would tell you it's better, the choice should be a better car, not something that's worse than what you have. But Republicans, legislators, have mastered the art of deception. So what they do is they tell you, unfortunately, you buy it, you believe them, they tell you that Obamacare is bad for you. Obamacare is going to kill your grandma. Obamacare is going to cost jobs. A number of things that they know, and that's where the deception comes into the picture. They know what they were saying was untrue. They knew that. It wasn't a revelation to them. It wasn't something that they stumbled on. They knew because when they engaged in the campaign of deception, they know they were doing that for one purpose and one purpose alone: to get you, the voter, you, the constituent, to go against it so that they could kill it. Not because it's bad for you, not because it's bad for the country, but because they want to protect the insurance companies. That is deceptive. And somebody like that, you do not have any argument, any logical argument to say you want to send that person back to Washington to represent you. Because I can assure you, in your state, it may not be you, it may not be your family members, but there are individuals who have pre-existing conditions. There are individuals who cannot get health insurance, who could have gotten, at least managed to get into the Healthcare Act, aka Obamacare. But the governors in the Republican state, 14 of them, they prevented that from happening. How is it that good for you? Now, if you work, you may not care because you already have coverage. But it is not just you in the state. And you should be concerned that constituents in your state are being hurt by the individual you elected in office. So you cannot just be selfish and think, oh, I don't care because I don't need it. How about today, you may not need it, but what happens when your luck runs out? What happens if you find yourself in the same predicament the other people who are not at work, who do not have the financial capability to get into it? What happens if it's a family member, your kids, your grandkids? What happened then? So you cannot live your life just thinking about just yourself. As I mentioned yesterday, the United States of America is a big ship. There is only one such ship. Anything that happened to it, anything that happened to any individual in that ship impact everybody else. So when your representative does those kind of things, and they don't do it because they make a mistake. They did those things because they meant to, because they don't have your interest, your best interest at heart. I know that. How could I possibly know that? I'm not psychic, but I know that. And I'm going to prove it to you. But think about it for a moment. Think about that for just one moment. Healthcare Act passed, signed into law. 20 million individuals currently across the nation. It would have been more if those 14 governors did not block constituents in their respective state to sign up. It would have been way more. 20 million individuals across the nation are covered under Obamacare. But your Republican legislator want to get rid of that. How is that beneficial for the country? How is that beneficial for the country? But I know they doing that not because they think there is anything wrong with Obamacare, not because they believe there is anything wrong with Obamacare, but because they have Machiavellian thought. They are literally acting in Machiavellian ways because they do not have the best interest of the American people at heart. Because when Obamacare passed, and it is by any analysis good for constituent, good for the country, and yet your representative want to get rid of it. One, they do not have an alternative that's better than what they, in fact, since 2010, they've been trying to get rid of Obamacare. They don't have an alternative. Even as of date, remember they already tried twice during the Trump administration to kill it. Has it not been for John McCain, it would have been gone. And yet they don't have an alternative. How is that possible that you have people who represent you in your state, and those people are doing things that actually harmful to the country? And this is the person you want to send back to Washington? And I know they're doing that because, and they know what they're doing is wrong. They know what they're doing is wrong, but they want to deceive you anyway. How can I possibly know that? How can I possibly know that Republicans are doing that out of malice? Yes, they are doing that. They're trying to get rid of Obamacare, not because they have a better alternative. Actually, they don't have an alternative at all, let alone a better one. But they're doing it out of malice. How do I know that? How can I possibly know that's the case? First, remember one thing. All the Republicans in Washington, all, not a single one of them voted for Obamacare. All of them voted against the passage of Obamacare. Number two, all of them since 2010 have been voting to repeal Obamacare. All of them have been doing that. One, there is no alternative. They do not have an alternative. And two, they know what they're doing is wrong. They know that for sure. They know it for a fact. In fact, they have been deceiving you all along while they were in that PR campaign and telling you Obamacare is bad. I'm going to prove it to you shortly. Don't go anywhere. Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. Now, forget, November 6th, Tuesday, November 6th. Don't forget, you have to vote. It is crucial, it is critical. Now, here's the proof that Republicans knew all along that what the PR campaign against Obamacare was done out of malice. Here's the proof. And the proof actually bothers me, irks me, because the reason we vote those people in office is to work out legislation that makes our lives easier. That's why we vote those people in office. Now, there is no problem that there are debate, discussion, argument between Democrat and Republican as to what's good, what's best, etc. All that is fine. This is politics. And the people, should accept that. But what actually troubling is the fact that Republican legislators, they act in bad faith. They do not act in bad faith just towards the Democrat legislators. They act in bad faith vis-a-vis the American constituent, you and me. Vis-a-vis the constituent, they act in bad faith. Because when they went out there and telling you that Obamacare is bad, that's not politics. Because in politics, you don't have to lie to your constituent. You can make your case to your constituent about why you think a Rolls-Royce is better than a Lamborghini. That's fine. You can make that case. But you cannot say a Rolls-Royce is a piece of trash. This is not a case. So that's what Republicans are engaged into. They engage in bad faith. It's not politics they're engaged into. Now, here is what you've been waiting for. 64 times. 62 times under Obama and twice under Donald Trump. 64 times. Republican legislators in Washington voted to kill Obamacare. Now, if I were to ask you that simple question, what does that tell you about Obamacare from a Republican perspective? It's bad, right? That's the only reason you would refuse something. You would be against that something, whatever that something is. Don't you agree? Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, 62 times under Obama and twice under the Trump administration. All of the Republicans voted to repeal Obamacare. That tells you, gee, this is bad. They really, truly believe it's bad. They don't want anything to do with it. Now, forget about the fact that they don't have an alternative. I'm going to put that aside for a moment. Because it's one thing that you don't have an alternative. That's defy logic, because as I pointed out in the example, in order for you to replace your car, you have to have another car, because no sound-minded individual would simply get rid of the car without another one, especially if it's imperative that you have a car to go to work. You cannot keep getting Uber all the time. Well, now there was no Uber. Uber was not always around. That's besides the point. Now, if the healthcare act is that bad, Can Republican explain to you, the constituent, why now they're running, telling you they're going to make sure that Obamacare is preserved, Obamacare stays? I don't suppose they get some sort of revelation from heaven about Obamacare. Do you? Do you believe that they wake up suddenly, midterm election, my God, we have a problem? They were relying on the tax cut that they passed for the wealthy and the large corporation. It doesn't seem to be helping, because yes, the tax cut did go to large corporation and wealthy individual, but not to the people. They push literally Brett Kavanaugh into the Supreme Court, and they thought that's gonna make Republican just goo goo gaga and vote them back in Washington. That doesn't seem to be helping either. And suddenly the light bulb goes off. An angel come from heaven and say, Obamacare. See the problem? 64 times Republican legislator in Washington tried to undo something that is good for the country, that's good for the population, for the general public, for those who cannot afford health care, something that's helping 20 million people. Again, as I mentioned, the reason it's not more is because 14 Republican governors have blocked the opportunity for constituents in their respective state to sign up for Obamacare. That's why there are not more than 20 million. Now, 64 times since 2010, Republicans have we become numb to the idea that every time you turn around, Republicans vote to repeal Obamacare. Republicans vote to repeal Obamacare. It's bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. 64 times. They act in bad faith. They act out of malice. Yes, this November 6th, it is imperative that you get rid of your Republican legislators, because they do not have your interest at heart. I'm not just saying that. I'm not speculating. I'm not assuming. I'm giving you hard facts as to how they've been acting in Washington. As I promised, from yesterday until November 6th, every day I will present you with one topic of what your Republican legislator have been doing that's harmful to you. I'm making a case for you, Republican constituent, to deny your Republican legislator a vote, because they do not deserve a vote back to Washington. They act out in bad faith and they act out of malice. No, they're not doing politics. This is not politics. Politics is when you can craft your debate in such a way that you present it to your constituent and say, I have a better plan than the other side. Not by lying, not by trashing, not by deceiving. And the Healthcare Act, and we can say thank God that they never succeeded. But you got to make certain that you vote your Republican legislator out of office, because Mitch McConnell in an interview, according to Bloomberg a few weeks ago, said if they keep the House, they're going to try once again to get rid of Obamacare. Ask yourself the question, why? Why do they want to get rid of something that now in your state you have Republicans that are telling you that they're gonna make certain that Obamacare is preserved? Now, if Obamacare is that bad, has been that bad, and they have voted 64 times to get rid of it, why are they telling you that they're going to make certain it doesn't go away? Now, there is only one explanation, and one explanation alone. They are again acting in bad faith. They're simply telling you that so that they can get your vote, and once they establish, then they're going to do exactly the same thing that they've been doing all along. How do I know that? 64 times. What do you expect? You expect all of a sudden for them to have a change of heart? No. They want your vote. They need your vote. So they have to tell you anything that they want to tell you so that you can, well, get softened. At least they're going to help keep Healthcare Act. No, they're not going to. It's because that's the way your Republican legislator have been acting, in bad faith and out of malice. That's how they act. So, yes, it is important, it is necessary, it is critical. If those things are important to you, if you value those type of benefits in the country, if it's not for you, for your children, for your grandchildren, because people with pre-existing condition, sometimes you don't even know that you have a pre-existing condition. How does that happen? I'm going to give you a simple example. During the passage of Obamacare, there was one woman, and she happened to be a Republican. And the way that the story came out, I don't recall, but I'm certain if you Google it, you'll find about not just that woman, several individual Republican who found themselves in the predicament, and thank God for Obamacare because of what had happened to them. Woman was just fine doing whatever she was doing for the day. I don't recall whether she either just came from the gym or she was going to the gym, whatever the case was, but she was on her feet, she was doing her routine. And suddenly, she passed out. Out of nowhere, she never had a condition before. She just passed out. Took her to the hospital after many tests. Well, while she was in the hospital, the doctor asked for next of kin. Of course, she got her husband called in. Husband left workplace, go to the hospital. Doctor had a side conversation with the husband. And she was diagnosed with lung cancer. She doesn't smoke. Nobody can explain as to how in the world she got lung cancer. But the worst part is she wasn't covered. That was the worst part. She was not covered. prior to Obamacare, that woman, and she acknowledged that much, would either have to sell everything that they had, houses, cars, whatever they have, empty their bank account so that she could have treatment. Because she just found out she now have lung cancer. Trying to get insurance at that time, she falls under pre-existing condition. Now, this is not someone who's been going to the hospital and who knows that she has a problem. She's been going she's been doing her own routine. No care in the world. Young individual, I believe she was either 35 or 36 years old. And then suddenly, she has pre-existing condition. So yes, your Republican legislators do not have your best interest at heart. Ask yourself this question. Why would they want to get rid of a coverage like this and not even have an alternative? What exactly is going on? Why would they want to do that? Now, nobody argues that Obamacare is perfect. Nobody is having that argument. But why not improve it? If indeed they believe their job is to improve the lives of the American constituent, why not build on it? Why not improve it? It's because your Republican legislators do not have your best interest at heart. They have proven it time and time again. And tomorrow, I will come with another topic to continue to make that point. But in the meantime, remember, Tuesday, November 6th, you should vote. And if you are a Republican, you should vote your Republican legislator out of office because they act in bad faith. And they have been acting in bad faith. And they have been acting out of malice. They do not have your interest at heart. It's not a speculation. Today, we talk about the Healthcare Act. Tomorrow, we'll bring you another topic, so you don't want to miss this conversation. We want to show you that your legislators do not care about the constituent. The tax cut that they just passed is for whom, do you think? Any idea? Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies, presenting to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a recent survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. to keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. Don't forget, November 6th, Tuesday. This is the coming Tuesday next week. November 6th is the midterm election. We are currently in the process of providing information, discussing topic after topic to prove, to justify the case against voting Republican legislator back to Washington. Yes, we are working to provide you with material, information that proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Republican legislator that you elected, you voted in office, do not have your best interest at heart. No, they do not. No matter what they say, they act in bad faith, they act out of malice, and we are here to prove it every day until election day, where we will continue to provide you information so that you can make those decisions. We're not giving you our own opinion. We're not telling you what we think. We're providing you information that are verifiable and that justify denying your Republican legislator victory during the midterm election. I thank you very much for spending the time with me, and I do invite you tomorrow at the same time so that we can talk about another topic, a very interesting topic, which will continue to prove that your Republican legislator should not have your vote this midterm election. Have a good afternoon or a good evening, whichever that happened to be. Good day. The Fourth Branch Podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.